Alrighty, welcome in to just another edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tommy Brzee. It is Wednesday, September 3rd around here, and we got a lot to talk about. It was an incredible week one. Apologies for a little bit of a late show here. Meant to do it yesterday. Forgot that I had jury duty yesterday, so was holed up in a courthouse for most of the day, but we're officially back, and we got a number of things to break down. We'll start with the big games. We'll get to Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, and then the big-time upset by Florida State over Alabama. We'll get to all those to start off the show, and then we'll do a little bit of a whip around to South Carolina with the big-time win. Tennessee, we'll talk about Georgia Tech, Colorado that got the weekend started on Friday, and a couple other games. Auburn with a big-time win over Baylor, and we'll get to all that in the second segment. And then we'll finish it out. We'll do some winners and losers from this past weekend. Came away really impressed with some new freshman quarterbacks as well as some new defensive coordinators around the country. And we'll talk about all that when it comes around. But let's get to the big games. Let's get to the games that define this weekend. And we'll start with the one that made the most headlines. It was Ohio State getting a big-time win over Texas 14-7. This one lived up to the hype in my mind. I do think this was an incredible game. Didn't quite go the way that everyone wanted to or expected it to go, particularly with the quarterbacks, particularly with Arch Manning. And we'll get to him here in a second. Let's start with Ohio State because they did end up winning the game. Let's talk about the winners first. Incredible job by Matt Patricia in this defense. They overturned so many guys from a year ago, and Arvell Reese, incredible player. Jermaine Matthews all over the field every single time he's out there. Jalen McClain, incredible athlete at the safety position next to Caleb Downs. And speaking of Caleb Downs, that's the best player in football. There's no two ways about that. He did not light up the stat sheet in this game. If you watch number 2 the entire game, he was the most impactful player on the field by a mile. He was absolutely incredible in this game. Totally manipulated Arch Manning from start to finish. Arch was trying to find that guy every single time he was about to get under center, and it didn't go well for him. It is very hard to keep track of number 2, and he's the best player in football as far as I'm concerned, and he very much proved that on Saturday. On the offensive side of the ball, nothing special. Nothing absolutely crazy, nothing hitting you over the head. I will say Julian Saban, I came away incredibly impressed. They didn't force him into bad situations. They made sure that he did not make the issue because Arch Manning was not playing well on the other side. Why force it with your young quarterback? But incredible play from him. He did not have many targets that were outright off target. Had a couple of drops early in the game by Jeremiah Smith and Max Clare, but really was dialed in from the jump, made every single right play, executed the offense very effectively. And then you got an incredible play from Carnell Tate. That might have been the worst throw of the day for Julian Saban, and Carnell Tate bails him out with an incredible play, and that was the difference in this ball game. I think whenever you have these games that you have two of what I consider to be top 5 defenses in the country, I said Texas was going to be the best in the country going into this game. I might think Ohio State's is the best going forward in the country, but at the end of the day, these are 2 of the top 5 defenses in the country. This was going to be about not forcing mistakes, and then that one big-time play, Carnell Tate made that one play. So a massive win for Ohio State. Now let's get to Arch Manning and the Texas offense, because that was kind of the big news. The Texas defense played Texas defense. They did an incredible job. Didn't get any sacks or turnovers, which is a little bit unlike them, but given the game plan from Ohio State, not overly surprising. The reality for Texas is they got a lot to fix offensively. Arch Manning was off target on 37% of his passes. It was not good for pretty much from start to finish. It was pretty bad. He obviously missed the first pass to DeAndre Moore where you really should just make that pass, and I think he threw it a little bit too hard, tried to put a little bit too much behind it. You can just lob it there. You can get it there, make sure you can run after the catch, and that's that. And that was a huge issue for him, even going back to last year. The pace of his throws are very different, and he really only throws what they call a one ball, which is you're going to put everything you have into this one, whether that's downfield or that's a normal dig or a normal out route. Just get it there as quickly as possible. He's very good at throwing those balls. A lot of passes, especially in the Steve Sarkisian offense, don't need that type of ball. You need to be able to layer them, and that has been an issue for him in the past. It was an issue in this game, but more importantly, the mechanics broke down very early, and that is not something that happened last year, and obviously the competition was different, the moment was different, and I think the moment got to him. I think there's no two ways about that. The mechanics were all types of off. His lower half did not remotely work for the vast majority of that game. Even on the incredible balls that he made late in that game, the great one down the sideline to Jack Injuries, his lower half looks a little bit weird in that one as well. He just makes an incredible throw with his arm talent. He's got to be able to figure that out. One way or another, he has to get more accurate. He has to be able to slow his heart rate and play better football. I tend to believe he's going to be able to figure it out, mainly because all the mechanical issues that were there for Ohio State were not there for the 2.5 games he played before that. Obviously, a different animal going up to Ohio State. I think he's going to get 3 games at home against inferior competition to really get his feet under him, get a little bit of confidence, and then hopefully he can let it rip against Florida. Because if you go on the road to the swamp and have the same issues you had on Saturday, you're not going to win that game. You're going to lose that game. You're going to fall to 2-2, and you're going to be in a position where you're walking into an Oklahoma game at 3-2 with maybe an undefeated Oklahoma on the other side. We'll talk about that Michigan game on the next show, but at the end of the day, Ohio State is a for real team. I really thought that all of this was going to be a little bit slower to get off the ground. Matt Patricia, Brian Hartline, all the new players. I thought it would be a little bit slower of a start, but they would become one of the best teams in the country. They're immediately one of the best teams in the country. They fly around. They make all types of plays. The defense is just littered with NFL dudes. And Arch Manning got spooked. There's no two ways about that. And whether or not that should happen to a guy of his stature, of his name, I don't know. The reality is it was his first start away from Austin, Texas. That does make a difference. We talked about it going in. I didn't expect him to light the stat sheet on fire in this game. I did expect him to play better. So there are definitely concerns. There's time to figure it out. I think Texas fans and pretty much everyone might be overreacting just a little bit to Arch Manning's performance, but that's kind of the reality. I think he knew and everyone knew if Arch Manning didn't put up a great performance in this game, it was going to go pretty aggressive in the other direction, and it has. And he's going to have to bounce back from that, but great win for Ohio State. Texas has similar problems to what they had last year in the red zone. They got to figure that out if they're going to be able to make the run in the CFP they want to. Moving forward to the nightcap on Saturday, LSU 17, Clemson 10. Incredible. That LSU defense. Cannot say enough about what Blake Baker has been able to make happen over there. Harold Perkins is back to being Harold Perkins. They put him in the star position, and it's such a weird position for them. It's essentially just a go make plays position, and Harold Perkins makes plays. He's an incredible athlete. Him and Whit Weeks were all over the field in this game. Incredible job from start to finish for this LSU defense. As for Clemson, this is kind of what I was worried about. I believed Clemson was going to win this game. I picked them to win. I thought it was going to be much more of a shootout than it ended up being, but at the end of the day, I picked them to win this game. What I did say going in, though, was they lost 3 games to SEC teams last year because they could not handle the size and the speed of the SEC teams. LSU might not be on the same level from a size perspective of a Texas or a Georgia. From a speed perspective, they are. They absolutely have guys that can fly around, and that Clemson offensive line did not have an answer for it. It is the big-time worry that I have for Clemson going forward. They can win the ACC. They can move through this conference, get to the CFP. We'll talk about Miami that might be standing in their way, and that defensive line is absolutely nasty as well. But I do think they have the ability to continue to make a run, go undefeated the rest of the way, win the ACC, go to the CFP. The reality is at some point you're going to get an LSU, you're going to get a Texas, you're going to get a Georgia, you're going to get someone that has the size and the physicality and the speed especially to get around you. You have to find a way to combat that. Cade Klubnik was not very good in this game because he didn't have time to be good in this game. There were so many things wrong with this Clemson offense, and it's not going to get better if you can't have the physical ability or the speed ability to get around these elite teams. If they want to win a national title, they got a problem on their hands, and they're not going to be able to beat these LSUs of the world, the Georgias, the Texas, the Oregons, the Ohio States of the world, because you don't have the same dudes they do. You have incredible players. Up front, it's just not playing the same game. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, they were incredible. They're an elite defense. I fully believe they're going to be more than fine on that side of the ball. What it comes down to for Clemson is you don't want to just win the ACC. You want to win a national title, and as of right now, it looks like you can't match up, especially up front when it comes to these elite SEC programs with your offensive line against their front seven. That is the biggest battle that you're going to face deep into the CFP, and they got to get a whole lot better for that. On the other side with LSU, they can make a national championship run. If this is the defense that you're getting every single week, which it'll be up and down, it'll definitely have different performances, but this is a good Clemson offense for a number of different reasons. If they're able to get after him like that every single week, It's going to be really hard to beat this team. Garrett Nussmeier played really good football. Clemson made them work for absolutely everything offensively, and he made some great throws. The Berrien Brown catch, we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. I don't know what a ruling of a catch is, but the reality is this very easily could have been 24, 27-10 at the end of this game, but LSU got a couple of weird calls at the end of this one. But the reality is this is a very, very good football team. They have a number of things in place. That defense is finally flying around the way Blake Baker's defense is meant to, and they have the most steady, even-keeled quarterback in the entire country. Incredible, incredible game from LSU. I think Clemson will be fine, at least for now, in the ACC. I can't promise they're going to be fine once we get to the CFP, and we'll have to evaluate it once it gets there. For LSU, hit the ground running. Everything is on the table for this football team. They can do amazing, amazing things. You got to make sure you keep the consistency up, because that was the issue with this team the last couple of years. You play an incredible game, and then you fall short to Alabama. You got to find a way to stay even-keeled throughout the season, but if that's the defense, then LSU is going to do some dangerous things this year. Miami gets a big-time win over Notre Dame. It got a little bit sketchy there for a second, but this Miami team is for real. I think everyone understood coming into the season that the talent level at Miami was as good as anywhere in the ACC, sans Clemson, and really kind of including Clemson, frankly. Incredible, incredible team, and particularly the offensive line is absolutely incredible. The defensive line, led by Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, terrifying in every sense of the word. Ruben Bain is going to be an absolute star, has been a star really for the last 2 years, but is going to be a beast this year and is going to give them the ability for that back end of that defense to have some growing pains. And they did in this game. They had played really, really good football for the first 2.5 quarters or so, and then had a bust on the back end and let Notre Dame go down the field, make a big-time play, and tie this game. And then it was Carson Beck. He kind of took over this game, kind of even-keeled everyone down the field. They make a big-time kick. Huge shout-out to, why am I losing his name here? Apologies. Carter Davis, the new kicker for Miami, made 2 massive kicks, had one that probably would have been made if they got the snap down and had the operation be smooth there. But the reality is, an incredible game for Miami. You have Carson Beck totally at comfort under the controls, really played good football. A lot of energy around Carson Beck that I knew there were Georgia fans that didn't like him. I didn't know there were a whole lot of people that thought he was just downright bad last year. He obviously didn't play his best football, but they led the country in drops over at Georgia. The offensive line did not play nearly as well as they usually do at Georgia. The run game suffered because of that, and Carson Beck had to wear all of it. So he's a good quarterback. He is an NFL quarterback going forward, and I think he's in a situation that's absolutely perfect with Shannon Dawson. And also, when you have a 17-year-old named Malachi Toney to throw the ball to, things get a lot better. That was the big thing that I was worried about with this Miami team going in, was who was going to be the wide receiver. Well, Malachi Toney made all types of plays, and obviously C.J. Daniels made maybe the play of the weekend with that touchdown catch. But the big question for Notre Dame on the other side is that offensive line good enough? Are they good enough to hold up against an A&M team in 2 weeks? They somehow get a bye this upcoming week, but then they get A&M coming to town. Can they hold up against that group? Because they didn't hold up against this Miami group. You're going to see really good defensive lines throughout this year, and A&M is absolutely one of them. Now, are they as good as Miami's? I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a toss-up there. I know it's going to be close, and I know that Notre Dame's offensive line is going to have to play a whole lot better. I know that I don't know what the plan with Jeremiah Love is. He had 14 touches in this game. He's your best player by a country mile, and you're breaking in a new quarterback. I get Miami played the run relatively well in this game. I get your offensive line wasn't playing very well in this game. You have to get number 4 the ball. I don't care if it's splitting him out in the slot receiver and throwing a screen out to him. You have to find a way to get him the ball more than 14 times now. Maybe you could stop jumping in the air and falling very aggressively, because that makes me a little bit nervous. But overall, if Notre Dame's going to be the team that they're capable of being, which is a playoff team competing for another national title, they got to find a way to get number 4 involved. And they have to get him involved very consistently throughout the game. If they can't, it's going to be a frustrating season, not a perfect season. They're going to go maybe 9-3 and miss the playoff. Everything's still on the table for this football team. The reality is you don't play much better in 2 weeks. You're going to lose to A&M, be 0-2, staring down a USC and a Pitt and a number of other games that could absolutely do you in before the end of the year, and then you're fully out of the CFP picture. So a lot of things to figure out for the Notre Dame side. The good news is I think he got a quarterback. CJ Carr played some really good football in this game. Started a little bit slow as you would expect, but really got his feet under him, made that great play for the touchdown on kind of a no-look pass, if you noticed that, and a couple other plays where just looked really calm. A really, really confident kid that made all types of plays. So absolutely massive for him. Both these teams will be in the hunt. Now, Notre Dame's got a huge one in a couple of weeks. I just think they have the dudes to make it happen. There's no doubt about that. Miami, that defensive line is going to get them really far, and then if Carson Beck is playing that level of football, you're going to be more than fine. Now, I do still worry about Mario Cristobal. I think you have to keep the pedal to the metal. Do not get conservative late in these games because then you're allowing teams like Notre Dame to find their way back into it. But at the end of the day, incredible, incredible game for Miami. Everything is on the table for this football team. They can absolutely win the ACC, and frankly, with that defensive line, if they get after quarterbacks the way they did on Saturday throughout the CFP, I'm not going to say they can't win a title. I'm still very, very skeptical. Definitely still need to see more from Malachi Toney and all the guys on the outside, but that's a really good football team with maybe the best defensive line or most disruptive defensive line maybe in the country going forward. And then this one. Wow. I don't really know what more to say. This was a game that you try not to overreact to week one. That is the number one rule. Make sure you do not overreact. These teams are going to change. They're going to get better. They're going to get worse. They're going to get different in a lot of different ways. This was bad in so many different ways. And it's a game that's really, really hard to not overreact to. But let's start with Florida State. Let's start with the good side of this game, and then I'll get to my Alabama rant because it's going to be a lengthy one. But first of all, good for Thomas Castellanos, really kind of giving it back to everyone that said he shouldn't be talking a little bit of crap going up to this game. He handled that business. He absolutely was incredible in this game. Handled the ball incredibly well when it was raining outside, a very, very tough thing to do. And if you can't handle the ball in a Gus Malzahn offense, you're going to turn it over a couple of times. He did an incredible, incredible job. He only threw 14 passes in this game. As a total, Florida State only threw 14 passes, and they won by 14 points. It was incredible to watch this team go to work, but Tommy Castellanos was the overall story, the overarching story. The offensive line and defensive line for Florida State are really, really good. They absolutely pushed around Alabama in this football game, and especially Darrell Jackson on the interior of that defensive line. A terrifying individual, a guy that totally ate up the best center in the country, maybe with Parker Brailsford. Incredible, incredible performance from a Florida State team that was outright dead in the water at the end of last year and would have been very, very easy to, if they had lost this game by 10, by 14, I'd probably be sitting in front of you and saying they did a lot of nice things. They did some good things. They continue forward. Florida State's trying to find their footing. Let's give them some time. They totally went out there and just dominated this team, and it's such a credit to Mike Norvell, to that staff, because you didn't just bring in good players. You brought in players that understood the message, that understood what you're going after, what happened last year, how poor it was, how bad of a turnaround it was. All of them bought into that, even though some of them weren't even a part of that team, including Tommy Castellanos. They walked in and said, we are going to turn this thing around. We are going to be the team that's remembered as the team that got Florida State and Mike Norvell back on track. Incredible. An incredible job from an incredible group of players. Now let's get to Alabama. Just real quickly, let's get to Alabama here. What are we doing? At the end of the day, I don't even care. Let's take Alabama out of it. Take the, script A. Let's take the helmets out of it. Let's take the Nick Saban out of this conversation for a second. That level of effort on a college football team is not remotely acceptable. And it's not every player. It's not even every player on defense. There's a couple of players on defense, and I won't air them out here because they've already gone plenty viral for not working very hard. This isn't acceptable for any team. I don't care if you're Alabama. I don't care if you're Alabama A&M. You have to be able to play with more passion, with more energy, and just more want to than that. They are a much better team than what they showed on Saturday, and they weren't remotely prepared. They didn't look like they knew what was coming from Florida State, which is weird because it was very similar to what happened against Vandy last year. The fact that you don't know what that's going to look like with Tommy Castellanos in the backfield is crazy to me. You were both physically and mentally weak against a team that came out and was fully ready to roll, and you should have known they would be fully ready to roll. They're coming off a 2-10 season, and they want to make a statement against you because you're Alabama, and they don't see fear from you anymore. They see an opportunity to take advantage of a team that is mentally and physically weak and shouldn't be. I don't know what's happening in Tuscaloosa. I know for a fact that it's not nearly what it needs to be. I don't care who the former coach was. I don't care what the team did in the past. If West Virginia was putting up this level of effort, sorry to give a stray to West Virginia, if any team in the FBS was giving this level of effort, it would be a problem. It just happens to be happening at one of the most prestigious programs in the entirety of college football. It is crazy to me. I cannot describe it. I don't understand it. I came into the season with all the hopes in the world for Alabama. I have them winning the SEC. I'm going to sit on that one, but frankly now, I'd much rather pick them to go 6-6 than win the SEC. If that's the team that I'm going to get every single week, they're going to get torn to pieces by Georgia. They're going to get torn to pieces by every single team that has a running threat at quarterback, and they're going to get torn to pieces by every team that plays mentally disciplined, because Alabama doesn't. They have more penalties in every single game that Kalen DeBoer has coached there than the other team. There has not been one game where they've been the less penalized team. They're 5-5 in his last 10 games, and one of those was against an FCS opponent. They have 4 losses when they were 14-point favorites in those games. They've lost to more unranked teams in 14 games than Saban did his entire time at Alabama. What are we doing? You have one of the most talented rosters, maybe the most talented roster in the entire country. How can you get these guys not to play hard or not even to fully understand what they're looking at every single play? You're playing on your heels every single play on defense. And on offense, you have a new quarterback. You can't expect Ty Simpson to go out there and be fully ready to roll every single second. He didn't play great. He looked exactly how I expected him to look. A little bit of a deer in the headlights, a couple of mistakes here and there, but the reality of the matter is the guys around him did not play good enough. From the receivers to the offensive line to the defensive line to the linebackers, especially the linebackers, and the back end. No one is playing Alabama football. No one's playing college football over at Alabama right now. They are playing run around on a football field and get beat by 14. That's the reality of this football program right now, and everyone's talking about who's the next head coach is going to be, and frankly, I think Kalen DeBoer is a good head coach. I think he has every ability to turn this thing around. It's getting way too late in the process to figure that stuff out. There are certain things that are absolute non-negotiables. At Alabama, you are missing the mark on just about every single one of them. So it's a $70 million buyout. It's massive. It's going to be really tough to come up with that money. You force their hand, you can bet they will. So it was bad. There's no two ways about that. I'm sure you've heard some version of that rant about everyone in college football by this point, but the reality of the matter is that's not just not Alabama football. That's no one's level of football. That should be at least no one's level of football, especially in the Power Four, especially in the SEC, and I don't know what you do to fix it. I'll be totally honest. I think they can play better football. I think they will play better football, but at the end of the day, I see a team that's going to walk into a lot of games where the margins are going to decide it, and they're going to lose those games because they miss the margins just about every single time. Massive win from Florida State. They deserve all the respect in the world. Alabama's got to look themselves in the mirror and figure out a lot of things. But we'll talk about that, obviously, coming up on next week and going forward. They play Wisconsin in 2 weeks, which who knows at this point. But we'll do a little bit of a weekend roundup with all the other games right after